The teachings of Krishna, as any other teachings of God, can be subdivided into three components: ontological, ethical, and psychoenergetical. The latter is related to man's development within Raja and Buddhi Yoga. They correspond to the three components of man's spiritual development: intellectual, ethical, and psychoenergetical. Let's consider each of them separately. Let's start with the ontological aspect of Krishna's teaching. From the ontological point of view, the Bhagavad Gita gives complete and clear answers to the main questions of philosophy. What is God? What is man? What is the meaning of human life? And how we should live on the earth. The Bhagavad Gita considers God in the following aspects: Ishvara, the Creator; the Absolute; Brahman; and Avatar. In other languages, Ishvara is called also the Heavenly Father, God the Father, Jehovah, Allah, Tao, the primordial consciousness. Ancient Slavs called him Svarog, and so on. Ishvara is also the highest teacher and the goal of every one of us. The second aspect of the word God is the Absolute, or everything. That is, the Creator existing as one with his multidimensional creation. The evolution of the Absolute goes on in cycles. They are called universal pulsations. Also, they are called Manvantaras. A Manvantara consists of a Kalpa, which is a day of Brahman, and of a Pralaya, that is night of Brahman. Each Kalpa begins with the creation of the world and ends with the end of the world. The meaning of such cyclic recurrence consists in creation of new conditions for continuation of the universal evolution of consciousness, or the evolution of the Absolute. The third aspect of God is Brahman, who is called also the Holy Spirit. This is a collective name for all divine individualities who come out from the abode of the Creator, primarily with the purpose of helping embodied people. There is one more manifestation of God on the earth, Avatar, which is the same as Messiah, Christ, That is, man, God, incarnated in a human body and merged by the consciousness with the Creator. An avatar from the divine level helps people to find the way to the Creator. Krishna, who presented us with the Bhagavad Gita, Jesus Christ, Babaji, Satya Sai Baba, and many others in the history of our planet are examples of avatars. Man is not a body. The body is just a temporary material container of man. Man is a consciousness, soul, a self-aware energy. The size of the lump of the consciousness of different people may differ significantly. From tiny rudimentary to cosmic sizes. It depends on two factors: on the psychogenetic age, that is, the age of the soul, and the intensity of efforts made on the spiritual path. Krishna said about the correspondence between man and man's body the following: only the body of an embodied soul is perishable, but the soul itself is eternal and indestructible. As one throws off worn-out clothes and puts on others that are new, so a soul throws off worn-out bodies and enters new ones. Man represents the last stage of the evolutionary development of incarnated Purusha, that is, plants, animals, man, God. Man represents the last stage, that is, the stage before mergence with the Creator. Man's task is to strive to achieve the divine perfection. On this path, man goes through certain stages. One of the schemes of advancement through these stages is the description of the evolution in terms of gunas. That is, there are three gunas. The first is tamas, darkness, ignorance, stupidity, coarseness. The second is rajas, passionateness, intensive search for one's place in life, fight for one's ideals, and so on. The third is sattva, which is purity, harmony. But Krishna said one has to go still higher, higher than sattva, to mergence with God, and this requires new efforts new struggle with oneself. We have to keep this in mind, since sattva may turn out to be a trap. It captivates us with its bliss, peculiar to this stage. It relaxes us, tempts us to abandon further efforts. It ensures paradise for us. But we have to go further. To become Brahman, having cognized the Nirvana in Brahman, and then to merge with Ishvara, we have to do much. It is also impossible to bypass the Rajas guna, for it is in this guna that man masters such qualities as energy, self-discipline, power, the power of the soul, the power of the consciousness. Another scheme of man's evolutionary advancement, mentioned by Krishna, is the scale of Vanas. Let me stress that this and many other scales of psychotypization are mutually complementary. A complex use of them in application to oneself or to others gives a more complete picture. According to the scale of Vanas, man on the first stage is called Shudra. People of this stage are too young in their psychogenesis and are able of doing too little. Their task is to learn from others who are more mature evolutionary by helping them in their work. The second stage is represented by Vaishyas. These include merchants, craftsmen, farmers, etc. Being in this Vana implies having a developed intellect, well developed for starting creative business activity. Because to run a business, one has to possess a well-developed intellect. It is through such activity that the representatives of this Varna develop themselves. The next Varna is represented by Kshatriyas. These are people who have ascended still higher in their intellectual development, in being energetic. These are leaders possessing sufficient broadness of the mind, I mean good leaders. And they also have to possess personal power. That is the power of the consciousness. By the way, one can start preparing oneself for this stage of spiritual development, since yours by developing the personal power and energy. Helpful in this work are physical labor, motion kinds of sport, dances to rhythmic music. If one does this without coarse emotional states, remembering about God and about the necessity to observe the ethical norms in front of Him, then this can form a good potential for future spiritual development in mature age. In mature age, it will be necessary to renounce both competitiveness and passionately. On the contrary, one has to come then to calm, harmony, tenderness, wisdom. And this should be based on the foundation of large personal power. That is the energy might of the consciousness and intellect. The highest Vana consists of Brahmans, that is, of spiritual leaders. Brahman, by the way, is one Sanskrit word which is translated sometimes inadequately with various Sanskrit-like terms such as Brahmin, Brahma, Brahma. This is wrong because in Sanskrit there is one word designating both the consciousness of Brahman and a person who has cognized Brahman and has achieved the corresponding stage of personal development. It became historically established in India to hand down the Vana membership by inheritance. Therefore, it's quite obvious that not all people who assign themselves to the highest Vana have high spiritual achievements. Let me cite now the words of Krishna about how to choose adequate methods of work on oneself, that is, methods which are in accordance with the real stages of psychogenesis and ontogenesis. Krishna said, "Fix your mind on me, submerge yourself as a consciousness into me. Verily, then you will live in me." But if you are not able to fix your mind steadily on me, try to reach me by practicing yoga. If you are not capable of doing constantly yoga exercises, then dedicate yourself to serving me by performing only those actions which are needful to me. Then you will achieve perfection. If you are not capable of doing even this, then seek mergence with me by renouncing the personal profit of your activity. Restrain yourself in this way. The activity which is dedicated to serving the evolution and which is devoid of egoistic, selfish components, that is spiritual service in other words, is karma yoga. Let me also note what great importance Krishna attached to the intellectual development of people on the spiritual path. This is especially important due to the fact that there are many sects denying the importance of intellectual development, up to opposing the traditional education of children. But Krishna exalted wisdom. He said, "Superior to others are the wise, even-minded and devoted to me completely. Verily, I am dear to the wise, and they are dear to me." Studying the Vedas, performing sacrifice, ascetic exploits and good deeds give proper fruits. But yogis possessing the true knowledge are superior to all this. They attain the supreme abode. So, who can be called the wise? They who have a wide range of knowledge on the main subjects about God, about man, about man's path to God. This is the basis, the foundation of wisdom, but is not wisdom yet. This is just possession of much knowledge. Wisdom implies an additional capability of operating the knowledge. That is the ability to create intellectually. How can we develop this quality in ourselves? The first and easiest way is to study in usual educational institutions, in schools, in universities. This trains the thinking abilities, also to master as many skills and professions as possible, to communicate with people, with God, and many other things. It is essential to master the stage of grihastha, that is, a householder. It is through service to other people, through caring about them, first within one's own family and then within the family of spiritual disciples, that wisdom can be gained. And the Creator does not let foolish people into Himself. He does not need them. Ethics consists of three components. First, man's attitude toward other people, toward all living beings, toward the entire environment. Second, attitude toward God. And third, attitude toward one's own path to perfection. Let me cite now Krishna's statements on each of these three parts of the ethical teachings. Krishna suggested regarding everything existing in the universe as a manifestation of God in the aspect of the Absolute. Love for God in this aspect implies our love for the creation, because the creation should be regarded as an integral part of God in the aspect of the Absolute. Krishna said, I am the taste of water, I am the shining of the moon, and the light of the sun, and pranava, and the universal knowledge, and the cosmic voice, and humanity in people. I am the pure scent of earth and the warmth of fire. I am the life of all the living and exploits of spiritual warriors. I am the consciousness of all who have developed the consciousness. I am the splendor of all the beautiful. I am the strength of the strong, who are devoid of attachments and sexual passions. I am also the sexual power in all beings that does not contradict Dhamma. Know that Sattva, Rajas and Tamas originate from me. But understand that they are in me, not I am in them. The one who does not injure people is dear to me. Compassion for living beings, the one of divine nature, possesses this quality. Speech causing no dislike, pleasant, such is the asceticism of the speech. Amicability toward everyone, such is the asceticism of the mind. They possess developed consciousnesses and are advanced spiritually, who are well disposed both to friends and to enemies, to neutrals, to strangers, to the envious, to relatives, to the pious, to the vicious. Now about man's attitude towards the Creator. Only love can contemplate me in my innermost essence and merge with me. Steadfast and pure love for me. This is acknowledged as true. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice or offer, whichever feat you perform it as an offering to me. Seeking unity with me, resolutely cognizing the Atman, devoted the mind and consciousness to me, such a loving me disciple is dear to me. All for whom I am the supreme goal are dear to me above all. God suggests that we regard our lives as the opportunity to approach perfection by making efforts on transformation of ourselves, as well as through active, creative love service to God, which is manifested as our service to people. These are the corresponding statements of Krishna. The one who is not hostile to any living being, who is friendly and compassionate, even-minded among joy and sorrow, all forgiving, ever content, such a loving me disciple is dear to me. The one who does not injure people, who is free from anxiety, elation, anger, and fear, such one is dear to me. The one who here on the earth, before liberation from the body, can resist the power of earthly attractions and anger, such one achieves harmony and is a happy person. Threefold are the gates to hell where man perishes: sexual passion, anger, and greed. Therefore, man has to renounce these three. The one who has freed oneself from these three gates of the darkness makes one's own good and attains the supreme goal. Excited, desirous for fruits of actions, greedy, envious, admiring oneself, dishonest, subjected to rejoice and sorrow, Such a doer is called Rajasic. Arrogant, coarse, angry, obstinate, somber. Such a doer is called Tamasic. By the way, sexuality, as well as other qualities of man, can be differentiated according to the gunas. That is, the sexuality peculiar to the representatives of a certain guna has the nature of this guna. This knowledge may become the ground for self-analysis and self-improvement, and for understanding other people better. Only the sattvic sexuality is worthy of encouragement. In the Bhagavad Gita, much is said about sattvic qualities. They are harmoniousness, calmness of the mind, subtlety of the consciousness, the ability to control one's own emotions with refusal of coarse emotional manifestations, prevalence of the state of subtle and joyous love, absence of egocentrism and violence. From the methodological standpoint, it's important that sattvic qualities can be developed only if one has excluded completely meat and fish from one's diet. Also, the sattvic qualities can be steadfast only in those who have passed fully the stage of kshatrism and have true knowledge. Free from earthly attachments, such a person is dear to me. Dispassion toward earthly objects, absence of earthly attachments, all this is acknowledged as true. But if one comes back in the mind to the earthly objects, then inevitably an attachment to them arises. This attachment leads to the desire to possess these objects, and the impossibility to satisfy this desire produces anger. Generosity, absence of greed, the one of divine nature possesses these qualities. The one who as a consciousness is free and omnipresent, the one who as a consciousness is free and omnipresent, who has cognized the Atman, who has no earthly desires, such one attains through the path of renunciation the highest perfection and the freedom from the fetters of destiny. The one who is without earthly attachments and egoism, even-minded among joy and sorrow, all forgiving, who requires nothing from others, such one is dear to me. Humility, simplicity, absence of egoism, all this is acknowledged as true. Haughtiness, pride are the features of the one of demonic qualities. Equal toward a friend and toward an enemy, the same toward glorification and disgrace, in warmth and in cold, among joy and sorrow, free from earthly attachments, regarding equally praise and blame, laconic, content with everything that happens, not attached to home, determined in decisions, full of love, such a person is dear to me. Let me note that the problem of fighting false attachments, egoism and egocentrism can be solved radically by forming the right spiritual orientation. This is the first point. That is, by forming wholehearted aspiration to the Creator. Second, by mastering control over the indriyas. And third, by direct elimination of the lower self in Nirodhi through the meditation total reciprocity. If this meditation is performed in the Holy Spirit, it results in the state of Nirvana in Brahman. When performed in the Aeon of the Creator, it results in mergence with the Creator. Work with the Indriyas is a component of the psycho-energetical work on self-development. It is feasible only for those who master it at the stage of Raja Yoga, the methods of moving the consciousness from one chakra to another, who developed all three dantyans, and then, at the stage of Buddhi Yoga, brought to the perfect state the bubbles of perception. Determined in decisions, full of love, such a person is dear to me. The contact with matter produces feelings of heat and cold, of pleasure and pain. These feelings are transient. They come and go. Endure them with fortitude. The one who is unmoved by them, who remains sober and unfaltering in joy and in trouble, such one is able to attain immortality. Superior to all outer sacrifices is the sacrifice of wisdom. All actions become perfect when they are performed by the wise. Therefore, gain wisdom through devotion, inquiry, and service. Sages and clairvoyants who perceive the essence of things will impart this to you. There is no purifier better than wisdom in this world. Through it, the one skilled in yoga attains enlightenment in the Atman. The one full of faith gains wisdom. The one controlling the Indriyas gains it too. Having achieved wisdom, they quickly attain the higher worlds. Only love can behold me thus. Only love can contemplate me in my innermost essence and merge with me. The one who serves me with steadfast love, such one, having freed oneself from the three gunas, deserves to become Brahman. The nirvana in Brahman is attained by those rishis who dedicate themselves to the good of all. Let's begin with the preparation of the body. Krishna did not leave specific methods for realization of this task, but he gave general descriptions. Know that they who perform severe ascetic exploits for the sake of self-admiration and pride, unwise, torturing the elements that compose their bodies, know that their decisions are demonic. Purity, abstention, non-harming the body, such is the asceticism of the body. Verily, yoga is not for those who eat too much or don't eat at all, not for those who sleep too long or wake too long. Yoga dispels all suffering in those who have become moderate in eating, resting, working, also in sleeping and waking. Food that promotes longevity, strength, health, jocundity, and serenity of mood, which is succulent, oily, substantial, and tasty. Such food is dear to the sattvic. What did Krishna say about the preparatory exercises for the energy structure of the body? It's impossible to start working with the Atman straight off. This work should be preceded by preliminary trainings. About this preparatory stage, Krishna said briefly, if you are not able to fix your thoughts steadily on me, try to reach me by practicing yoga. This concerns the use of the methods of Raja Yoga, which are described in detail in our book Eco-Psychology. In the Bhagavad Gita, the following is said about this. Arjuna said to Krishna, for such yoga, which is attained through inner evenness, I do not see a firm ground in myself because of the restlessness of the mind. For the mind is truly restless. It is turbulent, obstinate, hard to restrain. I think it is as difficult to control as to control the wind. Krishna said, of course, the mind is restless and is hard to control, yet one can put it under control by constant practice and dispassionate.
Йога трудно достигается человеком, который не постиг свой атман.
Yoga is hard to attain for those who have not cognized the Atman.
Идет к йоге, заглавной буквы, то есть к конечной цели, к слиянию с Ишварой.
Such one is on the right way to yoga. This is my opinion.
Так полагаю я. Вот отметить, что в эзотерической практике
In the esoteric practice, the problem of controlling the mind is easily solved with the help of the methods of Raja Yoga and then of Buddhi Yoga. For this purpose, one has to learn to move the consciousness into the Anahata chakra. Later on, at the stage of Buddhi Yoga, one just needs to be a large spiritual heart outside the body, and then this restlessness of the mind simply cannot exist. Of course, this does not mean that such a person loses to some degree the intellectual ability. On the contrary, it becomes better. With such spiritual achievements, one can perceive events more objectively, and one's decisions and actions become more adequate. The main essence of man is the Atman. The one who has cognized the Atman attains full peace, because such one takes refuge in the divine consciousness when being in cold or in heat, in situations of joy or grief, honor or dishonor. Let a yogi be constantly concentrating in the Atman.
когда его очищенное мышление,
Such a person
свободное
who
от
is
всех
free
влечений,
from all cravings and
сосредоточено
is
лишь в
concentrated
Атмане,
in the Atman alone,
тогда о нем говорят,
is regarded
он
to be
в
in
гармонии.
harmony.
Тот,
The
кто
one
познал
who
себя
has
как
cognized
сознание,
oneself as a consciousness,
кто
who
отождествился
has
с Атманом,
associated oneself with the Atman,
кто
who
уповает
is
только на
devoted
Всевышнего,
only to the Lord
кто находит
and
прибежище
takes
только в
refuge
нем,
in Him,
тот идет к освобождению,
such one, purified
очищенный
by salvational
спасительной
wisdom,
мудростью.
goes to liberation.
Верно
Rightly
устремленные
aspiring
йоги
yogis
познают не
cognize not
только
only
душу,
the soul,
но
but
и
also
Атман
the Atman
в себе.
in themselves.
Но
But
неразумные
the
не
unwise
находят
do
Атмана.
not find the Atman.
Когда, подобно
When a
черепахе,
yogi
втягивающей
takes
в
the
себя
indriyas
свои
of the
ноги и
earthly
голову,
objects,
йог
as a
открывает
tortoise
свои
withdraws
индрии от
its
земных
limbs
объектов,
and head into its shell,
тогда он достиг
then such
истинного
a yogi
понимания.
has attained the true understanding.
Наблюдающий,
Observing,
поддерживающий,
supporting,
все
all
принимающий,
receiving,
Всевышний
the highest
Владыка,
ruler,
а также
also
божественный
the
Атман,
divine Atman.
так именуется в
This
этом
is how
теле
one calls
светлейший.
the Supreme Spirit in this body.
Тот, кто видит, что
The
все
one
действия
who sees
совершаются лишь в
that all
Пракрити,
actions are realized only in Prakriti,
Атман же
and that
остается
the
тем,
Atman remains in calm,
тот воистину
such
видит.
one truly sees.
Вечный и не
The
связанный
eternal
Пракрити,
and non-bound by
Божественный
Prakriti
Атман,
divine Atman,
хотя и пребывает в телах, но не
though residing
действует
in bodies,
и не
does not
подвергается
act and
воздействию.
cannot be influenced.
Как
As
вездесущая
the
пустота
omnipresent
не
void
смешивается
does
с
not
святым
intermix with
по
anything
причине своей
because of
тонкости,
its subtlety,
так и Атман, пребывающий
so
в телах,
does the Atman,
не
residing in bodies,
смешивается ни с чем.
intermixes with nothing.
Как искать Атман?
How can one find Atman?
Основную концепцию
Krishna
этого поиска
outlined the main
Krishna
concept of
описывает
this
так.
search as follows.
Я – источник
I am
всего.
the source of everything.
Все развивается от меня.
Everything originates from me.
Поняв это, мудрые
Having understood
почитают
this,
меня
the wise
в глубоком
worship
восторге.
me with great delight,
Устремив свои мысли ко мне,
directing their thoughts at me,
предав свои жизни,
devoting their lives to me,
просвещая,
enlightening each other,
постоянно беседуя
always
обо мне.
conversing about me.
Они довольны
They
и
are
рады.
happy and content.
Им,
To
всегда
them,
преисполненным
always
любовью,
full of love,
я дарую
I give
Будхи-йогу,
Buddhi Yoga,
посредством
by
которой
means
они
of
достигают
which
меня.
they attain me.
В связи со
In
сказанным,
relation to
необходимо
this,
подчеркнуть значимость работы
I
по
have to
развитию
stress the
духовного
importance of work on development of the spiritual heart, which is essential for achieving spiritual summits.
сердца. Ведь именно внутри
It is
развитого
inside the
духовного
developed
сердца
spiritual
посредник
heart
может
that
найти
one can
свой
find
Атман,
the Atman
а затем познать и
and then
Парам
cognize Param
то есть
Atman,
Ишвару,
that is Ishvara, the Creator.
Кришна об этом говорил
Krishna said about this
Я
the following:
Атман, что пребывает
I am
в
the
сердцах,
Atman which abides in the hearts of all beings.
я пребываю в сердцах,
I abide in the hearts of all.
Ишвара пребывает
Ishvara
в сердцах.
abides in the hearts of all beings.
С тем, как именно совершается раскрытие и
How
затем
one
развитие
can
духовной
open and
личности,
develop
можно
spiritual heart
познакомиться практически во всех
is
наших
described
книгах
in
и
our books
фильмах.
and films.
Кришна говорил:
Krishna said,
откроет тебе
I
то,
will
что
reveal
должно быть
to you
познано,
what has to be known,
что, будучи
and
познано,
having
приводит к
been known
бессмертию,
brings one to immortality.
то безначальный,
This is
высочайший
Supreme Brahman, who has
находящийся за
no
пределами
origin and
бытия
is beyond
и
the limits
небытия
of
существ.
existence and non-existence of beings.
Всюду имея руки и ноги,
His hands, feet, eyes, heads, mouth are everywhere.
он
Omniscient, he
пребывает в
abides
мире,
in the world,
познавая все,
embracing everything.
обладающий всеми
He has
ощущениями,
no organs of
не
perception,
имея при этом
yet
органов
he
чувств,
perceives everything.
не связанный ни с чем,
Having no attachment to anything, yet sustaining all beings,
свободный от трех
free from
гун
the
и
three gunas
пользующийся
and
гунами.
using the gunas
Вне и внутри
inside
всех
and
существ,
outside of all beings,
пребывающий в покое
staying
и
in
все же
calm and yet
действующий,
acting,
неуловимый по своей
elusive in
тонкости,
his subtlety,
всегда
being
близкий
always
и
near
все же
and yet at the
невыразимый
unspeakable
вдали.
distance,
Таков
such is
неприходящий,
imperishable he,
неразделенный
not
среди
divided
существ, и все же
among beings
пребывающий
and yet
порознь
existing
каждому.
separately in everyone.
Он познается
He is
как помощник
recognized as
всех.
the helper of all.
Он
He
обнимает собою
embraces
всех
all beings
и
with
направляет
himself
в развитие.
and guides them in their
О нем,
development.
о свете
About
всего
him,
светлого
about the light of all lights,
говорится, что
it
он
is said
пребывает
that he
вне
is beyond
пределов
the
тьмы.
darkness.
Он
He is
мудрость,
wisdom,
цель
the
всякой
goal
мудрости,
of every wisdom,
мудростью
cognized
постигаемой,
by wisdom,
пребывающая
residing in
в
the
сердцах
hearts of all.
И тот, кто
The one
служит
who
мне
serves
с
me with
непоколебимой
steadfast
любовью,
love,
тот,
such
поднявшийся
one,
над тремя
having
гунами,
freed oneself from the three gunas,
достоин стать
deserves
Брахманом.
to become Brahman.
Как достигающий
How the
совершенства
one who
приходит
has
к
attained
Брахману,
perfection comes to
величайшему
Brahman,
состоянию
to the
любви,
highest state of wisdom,
о том узнай
hear
от
from
меня
me
в
in
кратких
brief.
словах. Тот, кто
The
счастлив
one
внутри,
who is happy within,
кто радуется
who
не
finds
от
joy
внешнего,
not in the outer,
кто озаряется
who is
любовью
illuminated
изнутри,
by love within,
тот йог
such a
способен
yogi
постичь
is capable of
сущность
cognizing
Брахмана
the essence
и
of Brahman
нирвану в Брахмане.
and attaining the nirvana in Brahman.
Нирвану в Брахмане
The nirvana
получают
in
те
Brahman
риши,
is
которые
attained
очистились
by
от
those
пороков,
rishis who have gotten
освободились
rid
от
of vices,
двойственности,
become free from
познали
duality,
Атман
cognized the
и
Atman,
посвятили
and
себя
dedicated
благу
themselves
всех.
to the good of all.
Освободившиеся
Free
от
from the
земных влечений
earthly
и
attractions and anger,
гнева, занятые
dedicated
духовным
to
подвижностью,
spiritual pursuits,
обуздавшие мысли,
having subdued the mind
познавшие
and
Атман,
cognized the Atman,
те обретают
they
нирвану
attain
в
the
Брахмане.
nirvana in Brahman.
Высшее счастье
The highest
ожидает йога,
happiness awaits a
когда он
yogi
стал
who
безгрешным
has become
и
sinless
подобен
and
Брахману.
alike to Brahman.
Кто привел себя в гармонию и сбросил пороки,
Yogis who have brought
тот
themselves
йог
into
легко
harmony
испытывает
and gotten rid of
беспредельное
vices
блаженство
experience easily the unlimited
от
bliss
соприкосновения с
of
Брахманом.
contact with Brahman.
полностью очищенном
with the
сознании,
completely purified
победивший
consciousness,
себя стойкостью,
overcame oneself by steadfastness,
отрешившийся от внешнего,
detached from all the outer,
сбросивший с себя
cast off
страсть и вражду,
passion and enmity,
укромно живущий
living
и
secludedly, abstinent,
покоривший свою речь
subdued
и
the
тело
speech,
и ум,
body and mind,
постоянно пребывающий в
being
медитации и
constantly in
бесстрастии,
meditation and passionless,
откинувший
devoid of
эгоизм,
egoism, violence,
надменность,
arrogance,
половую страсть,
sexual passion,
гнев,
anger,
жадность,
greed,
исполненный верой
imbued
и
with
бескорыстием.
peace and selflessness,
Такой человек достоин стать
such a
браманом.
person deserves to become Brahman.
Со спокойным ясным
With the
сознанием,
calmed, pure consciousness,
постигший
the
Брахмана
one
и
who has cognized
утвердившийся в
Brahman
Брахмане,
and established oneself in Brahman,
не ликует,
neither rejoices
получая
when
приятное,
receiving the pleasant,
и не скорбит,
nor grieves
получая неприятное.
receiving the unpleasant.
Тот, кто не
The
привязан
one who is
к
not
удовлетворению
attached
своих
to
чувств
satisfaction
внешних
of the senses by
и
the outer
находит
things,
отраду в атме,
and who finds joy in the Atman,
достигнув
such one,
единения с
upon
Брахманом,
reaching unity with Brahman,
вкушает неприходящее
partakes
блаженство.
of the eternal bliss.
Достигнув вечности
Having
слияния с
achieved the
Брахманом,
eternity in mergence with Brahman,
он исполняется
one
высочайшей
attains
любви
the
ко мне.
highest love for me.
Кришна говорил,
Krishna
победивший
said,
свои
the
индрии,
one who has conquered the Indriyas,
отказавшийся от
renounced
влечений
attractions
и
and
неприязни,
distractions,
предавший
and
себя
established
Атману,
oneself in the Atman,
обретает
attains
внутреннюю
the
чистоту.
inner purity.
По достижении этой чистоты
When the inner purity
наступает
is
конец
attained,
всем страданиям.
all sorrows disappear,
У обретшего ее очень
and
скоро
the
укрепляется
consciousness
сознание.
strengthens.
Но это достижение,
However,
говорил Кришна,
this
можно и потерять.
achievement can be lost.
У человека,
The reason
уступающего
of
напору
man who
страстей,
yields to the pressure of
уносится
passions
разум,
gets
подобно
carried
тому,
away
как воздействие
like a
уносит
ship
бури.
carried away by the storm.
От гнева происходит
Because
полное
of
искажение
anger, the
восприятия.
perception gets completely distorted.
От искажения
The
восприятия
distortion of
потеря
perception
памяти
causes the loss of memory,
о своих прошлых достижениях.
memory about one's own achievements,
От потери памяти
and the loss
потеря
of memory
энергии сознания.
leads to the loss of the energy of the consciousness.
Теряя
And
энергию
by
сознания,
losing the
человек
energy of the consciousness, man degrades.
Я источник
I am the
всего.
source of everything.
Все развивается.
Everything originates from me.
Поняв это,
Having
мудрые
understood
почитают
this,
меня
the wise
в
worship
глубоком
me
восторге.
with great delight.
Оживотворив всю
Having
вселенную
enlivened
частицей
the
себя,
entire universe
я
with the
остаюсь.
minute part of myself, I
Нет
remain.
границ моей
There is no limit to my divine power.
высочайший и вечный мой
My
образ
supreme
раскрывается
and
лишь в
eternal form is revealed
слиянии
only in
с
yoga,
Богом.
in mergence with the Atman.
Нет ничего
There
превыше
is
меня.
nothing superior to me.
Я превыше
I am
разрушимого
transcendent to the perishable and even to the imperishable.
мною
By
в моем
me,
непроявленном
in my
виде
unmanifest form,
проникнут весь этот мир.
this entire world is pervaded.
Все существа
All
имеют
beings
корни
have
во
roots
мне.
in me.
Кто знает все о
They
вечном
who know
заведующем
everything about the
владыке
eternal omnipresent
мира,
ruler
о том,
of
кто
the
тоньше
world,
тончайшего,
about the one subtler than the
основе
subtlest,
всего,
the foundation of everything,
невообразимом по облику,
formless,
сияющем подобно
shining
солнцу
like
за
the
мраком.
sun behind the darkness.
Кто постоянно думает обо мне, не
They
мысля ни
who
о чем
think
другом,
of me
тот
constantly,
уравновешенный
having no
легко
thoughts
достигает
about
меня.
anything else, such steady yogis easily attain me.
Брахман бессмертный и
And
нетленный,
Brahman, imperishable and immortal, is based on me.
я основа извечной Дхармы,
I am the basis of the eternal Dharma and the abode of the ultimate happiness.
выражая выполнением своего долга поклонения
By
тому,
performing the
от кого
duty and
происходит
worshipping
все
through this, the one by whose will all beings come into existence and who pervades everything, man attains perfection.
Любовью
By love,
он познает меня,
one cognizes me in my essence,
кто я есть
who
и
I
каков
am
поистине.
and what I am in reality.
Познав меня таким
Having
образом в
cognized me
самой
thus
своей
in my
сути,
innermost essence,
он погружается
one submerges into my beingness.
всегда думай обо мне.
Think always about me.
Люби меня.
Love me.
Жертвуй
Sacrifice
собою
yourself
ради меня.
for my sake.
Только на меня
Seek
уповай,
refuge only in me,
и ты придешь
and
ко мне.
you will come to me.
Йог, слившийся с Атманом
The
и
yogi who has
контролирующий
merged
свой
with the Atman and who controls the mind
приходит к высшей нирване.
enters the
где
highest
он
nirvana
пребывает во мне.
and abides there in me.
В конце многих
At the
рождений,
end of many births,
исполненный
the wise man
приходит ко мне.
comes to me.
Васудева есть все,
Vasudeva is
говорит
everything,
достигший.
says the one of rare Mahatma's qualities.
То знание, которое видит единое, неуничтожимое
The
существо,
knowledge that sees one indestructible being in all beings,
неразделенное
undivided
отдельно,
in the separate,
знай, что
know
такое
that
знание.
such knowledge is sattvic.
Арджуна увидел всю Вселенную,
Arjuna saw
разделенную
the
на многие
entire
миры,
universe subdivided
но
into many
объединенную
worlds,
воедино
but united
в теле
into one
высшего
in the
божества.
body of the highest deity.
Кто всюду видит
They
меня,
who see
и во
me
мне видит
everywhere
всё,
and see
того я
everything in
никогда
me,
не покину.
I will never forsake
Кто
them,
никогда не покинет
and
меня.
they will never forsake me.
Кто, утвердившись в таком
They
единении,
established in such oneness,
почитает меня,
who worship me present in everything,
тот йог
such
живет
yogis
во
live
мне,
in me,
каким бы ни был
whatever
род
their
его
activity
занятий.
is.
Именно слияние
Mergence
с
with
Брахманом,
Brahman,
Творцом
the
и
Creator and
Абсолютом,
the Absolute,
достигается через
is achieved
медитативные
through the
приемы
meditative
перевода
methods
себя как
that
сознания
allow one to enter the state of non-I
за счет медитации
with the
тотальной
help of
рецепрокальности.
meditation of total reciprocity.
При этом совершается не только ментальное
at that
но и
not only mental
медитативная
but
замена
also meditative replacement of
эгоцентризма
egocentrism
на
with
богоцентризм.
God-centrism takes place.
И вектор
In
внимания
this
педиста
meditation, the vector
направляется
of
от
one's attention is directed from the creator to the creation.
И вот последние цитаты
Now let me give a few more quotations from the Gita.
земля,
Earth,
вода,
water,
огонь,
fire,
воздух,
air,
акаша,
akasha,
ум
mind
и сознание,
and consciousness,
а также индивидуальное
also
я.
the individual
Это
self,
все есть то, что
all
существует в
this
мире моей
is
пракрити.
that which exists in the world of my Prakriti,
Такова
8
моя
in total.
низшая природа.
This is my lower nature,
Познай мою иную
but
природу,
know my
высшую,
higher nature,
которая есть элемент
which is
жизни,
that element of life
посредством
thanks to
которой
which the
вершится мир.
entire world is sustained.
Она
It is
есть
the
лона
womb
всего
of
сущего.
everything existing.
Я есть
I am
источник
the source of the
проявленной
manifested
Вселенной, и
universe,
во мне
and it disappears in me.
И вот конечной целью
The ultimate goal of every one of us is mergence with Him.
и имеет смысл полностью посвятить
Let us dedicate our lives to this. Author and director of the film Vladimir Antonov. Translated from Russian by Mikhail Nikolenko.